how are you, Terry?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Nancy, for agreeing to this interview.
You're welcome.
So you are a missionary.
Yes, and it's a short-term missions, and I think really when I think about it, it has turned into a very long missions, but it's been wonderful.
Okay. Who have you done different mission trips with different groups, or is it always the same group?
In 1991, we started a mission team, and our first trip was to the Amazon River Valley in Brazil, because that's where one of the people who could speak Portuguese wanted to go back because he grew up there and was his parents were missionaries there, and so that's how I got started going there. But then that was many years we went on trips with another person who had a boat and who was working with a mission team in Brazil. And so then there's a long story that goes behind that I won't probably have time to tell you. Now we do the Amazon outreach, is what the last 24 years has been with Amazon outreach. But and that's where I have gone many, many times, like 43 times to Brazil.
Wow.
And then I have also gone 3 times to Africa, which is another experience entirely.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And how old were you when you got started?
I was very old. And it was an interesting thing, too, because my husband and I were working in the church doing all kinds of different things there. And a lot of it was missions and that we did, bus ministry, and I did the special needs children at the church, and never thinking. But one Sunday there was this little blurb in the paper, in the bulletin, and it said to come and visit even if you didn't want to go on a trip to Brazil. And so that's what I did. And this was in 1991. So I'm 90 now. You just figure out how many years ago that was.
So you were a grandma.
Oh, yes. And over time, has been an interesting thing for me with the grandkids and the great-grandkids now.
Wow. So you're never too old to get started.
No, you're never, because it's an amazing thing to do. And I always felt like I was doing missions here, never thinking of going and spending any time particularly away. But when the first trip that I went on, it was really because of my husband wanting me to go and thinking this would be something that I could do. And I thought, well, I could do this, but we were involved. And I thought, well, this is good. So anyway, though, on that very Sunday after we went to this little meeting that they had, we stopped at the grocery store to get some, like I say, peanut butter for sandwiches, but that's not true. But anyway, and we met a couple that had been to church with us. And Larry said to me, I think you need to go on this trip. And so he told these people in the store that I was going to Brazil on a mission trip. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is crazy. But I was very thankful that I did, because like I say, this was in 1991. And 2 months after we got home, my husband died. And so this was a thing that I never thought I would ever do again.
Right.
But like I say, 43 times back to Brazil.
So tell me how hard it was to go to on your second trip.
It was very hard to go on the second trip, because I was just getting kind of very much used to being by myself. And he passed away in November, and all the Christmas holidays and everything, it was hard. And but in May there was another trip that was starting to plan, and so I thought, since I had been once, I was a professional now at this. And so I was working with the team that had said they would do Bible school, and that's what I had done. And so I worked with them, and I said, okay, you have to pick somebody to be the leader of this trip. And after these weeks went by, and we'd meet, and nobody would say that they would go. And so this one gal asked me, okay, she said, why is it that you're not going? And I said, well, just think about it. This only few months has gone by and all these things have happened, and I just don't think that I can go. And she said, do you need the money to go? And I said, oh yeah, that's a biggie too. But the interesting thing about that was she said to me, if we could help you with it, would that be good? And I said, well, and then she said, pray about it. Well, I hadn't been praying, or maybe I had been praying about it, thinking, dear Lord, please don't make me go on this trip. But anyway, as it turned out, she said, if I bring some money for and help you with this on our next meeting, then she said, well, you can really consider it. Otherwise, turn this over to someone who needs the money.
Right.
And I said, okay, I will. Well, that was on a Wednesday that we met. And on that next Sunday, we had an all-together meeting. And this gal came walking up to me, and she had a handful of money to pay for the rest of my trip. And I thought, oh, dear Lord, please don't strike me on the head with a 2x4 or whatever, because I definitely want to go, but I just couldn't see it happening.
Right.
And but I was very, very thankful that I did. And that on that trip, my husband was mentoring a young fellow who was about 16 at the time, and he was one of our bus ministry children, and he wanted to go so bad because he missed my husband as well as I did. And so we were two on that trip that certainly will never forget it. It was wonderful. And then after that, whenever the trip was planned again, I was top on the list.
Oh, good, good. So I know you have some rooms dedicated to it. Should we go and look?
Yes, I think we are over here on the dresser. And these are things that I think this is interesting in that this is carved from a piece of, just a solid piece of wood. And I can't imagine spending time doing this.
Wow.
But that's what they have done. In this little creature is made from clay, in the rivers. There are certain places that they take and make things with clay, and they take it and put it, after they paint it, then they put it in a real hot oven and heat it up, and then drop it down into ice water, and that's what makes all these little cracks on here.
Yeah.
And this is raku art, R-A-C-U, raku art, and those are things that, and no two of them ever are alike. And this is a little thumb drum, and the kids all enjoy playing this thumb drum.
That's fun.
But these are just some things that I brought back. This is made out of a rock, a stone.
Wow.
And like the birds, it's just a big chunk of rock, and then they do this, which I think is interesting art. And they paint it with materials that they have collected from the jungle or wherever in Africa, and that's what makes the colors in the paints that go on these things. But it's just, I think, interesting to think that they have made these things out of nothing, really.
Right.
And most of the time, there's really no stores to buy anything, and these are kind of in a bigger city, like where the airport towns are, because in the jungle places, the same as like in Brazil, nobody comes there, and so they don't have any reason to collect anything or make anything. But all of the people, many of the people dress even now in these outfits, these shirts, and this one was in the airport because we didn't find anywhere else. And they told us that this on the package said one size fits all. Well, I guess it was one size fits all of the whole team because this was huge. I'm thinking, this is a little bit bigger than what I necessarily would have needed. But I did think the colors were pretty, and I liked the idea of having a item that they actually wear there.
Right.
Men and women wear these kind of things that look pretty much alike, and I think that's interesting. And then this over here, this is the 5 different animals of Africa, and they kind of almost worship these animals in far more than what is possibly necessary, I would say.
Okay, shall we go to your Brazil room?
Okay, but these are things in here that are not necessarily did I bring them home, but many, many of the things that I have brought them home. And up in the corner here are some bird nests that the birds built them in hundreds of them on just one tree in a village.
Wow.
And they're just solid. And how they know how to figure out which one of their nests is theirs, I do not know. But I brought them home with me, probably smuggled them home in my suitcase. But and this is funny. I love wind chimes, and this I brought home with me from a little floating souvenir shop outside of the big city of Manaus where we fly into. And I brought it home, and it was kind of dusty because it had been hanging there. And I was washing them in the sink, and inside of these there's this hole, and they were full of wasps, and they were still alive.
Oh.
Probably not necessarily should I have brought them home, but I did not know. But I wanted also to have a machete, because in every household people have machetes, and I wanted one that said Brazil on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I bought this there in a sort of a bigger city in Brazil, and I was wondering how I would get it home because it seemed like, I want to tell you something else too, because it's kind of not really to be carried on a plane.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said to the dentist who goes with us on these trips, I said, would you put this in your dental toolbox? And he did. He put it in there, and there was no questions asked. It just went right straight through. So I'm always thinking, oh my word, the dentist can get away with anything. And since that time, I've had him bring home many things for me. But I don't know, this is always an interesting thing for me. I never knew that Brazil nuts were big like this.
Wow.
Because the nuts themselves are inside. And even young kids take the machete and they hold it out and like this, and they'll hack it 3 times and cut the top out and dump the Brazil nuts out of it.
Wow.
And I always look to see if they still have all of their fingers. It makes me very nervous to do this.
So how young of kids hold a machete?
Probably 6.
Wow.
And they've probably been doing it a lot longer than that. And they use the same machete. Usually there's not more than 1, maybe 2 machetes in a household, because this is an expensive item for them to be able to purchase. But it's also a wedding gift given as a special thing for the couples when they get married. And but they use it for absolutely everything. Chopping up, fish that they catch, and even cut the heads off of chickens, and do all those different things with the same machete. But these things over here, but they use everything that they can that's native for making things to, and this, you've probably seen dancers with these things on their ankles, but it's real loud. And all it is pods, seed pods from a tree.
Wow.
And they just don't waste anything. But like I say, these are things that we don't really see in these villages where we go, because we are way in the jungle. And these are cute too, because these are all over, and I have been many places besides the up on the river in Brazil. And they are all over Brazil. And it's a bedtime story that they tell the children. And I'm thinking that it's crazy because this looks like an owl.
Yes.
But when you look at it like this, it's a monkey. And all over the whole of Brazil, they have these pods that grow on the tree. And they do this beautiful artwork on there. But the story is, it's so funny because at the very end of the story, then it's an owl and a monkey, and the owl says, "Who?" really loud. But I'm thinking then, okay, now the kids are supposed to go to sleep, I guess, after they get, but they're all sizes and all shapes, and there isn't anywhere that I have found in all over Brazil that I have been, besides the Amazon River, that this story is written. And it's a little different in different sections of the country, but it's always the same at the end where the owl says, "Who?"
Funny.
But I think that is funny.
You want to show us on the map what your typical trip is?
Okay, now this is where I've gone the most. It's up here on the Amazon River, and the Amazon River starts over here in well, what's the name of the country over here? But anyway, Peru, and it runs this way, and into the ocean over here, and but this is the spot where we fly into is in Manaus, and before Amazon Outreach, which is what I have gone with that group for the last 23 or 4 years, we would fly into an island that would be right here. But Manaus is where Amazon Outreach is now. But I've been all the way down here too, and this is an interesting place, and I never knew there were mountains, but there are mountains up here, and we've been all the way down along the coast. But mostly, and it's my love up here on the Amazon River, and with going into the jungles and in the rainforest, and it's just an amazing thing.
So tell me.
This is,
okay.
I was going to say this is a wasp nest that they're absolutely everywhere, all over. This little wasp I found in my backyard, and it was big and it looked really nice until he dried up, and then he got kind of small. But it's something I kind of, you might say, smuggle in, because I'm quite sure it wasn't supposed to have been brought in. But
Tell me about the hammock.
in the hammock, this is what we sleep in on the boat, and it's this one I did not sleep on the boat, but they're always like this. They're pretty. They look really nice, and they're very comfortable. People say they have bad backs and so forth, but they said, "I can't sleep in a hammock." Well, when they do, they are surprised, because they're big and they're very comfortable. But these are the two boats that Amazon Outreach has, and they're hoping against hope that soon we'll have another boat to use. And there's also a water well drilling boat, and it looks similar to this except way smaller. And there's been many wells drilled in the Amazon by this water well drilling boat, And this is why so many of the people are sick, because of the water. And of course, that's the same all around the world, I guess. But it's really bad there because people are washing clothes, they're bathing their babies, cows are drinking out of the same water, and then they scoop up a pod full of water and take it to their houses, and that's what they drink. And they love it when we give them our water bottles from what we are drinking,
Right.
and they love it because they don't have bottles. Of course, no plastic stuff is there in the jungle. And I think what is really interesting too is that when they dip this water out to go to take it back up to the jungle, it has stuff swimming in it, and that's what they drink. It's unbelievable. It's so yucky. This is an anaconda snakeskin on the wall. I never saw him alive. Thank goodness. But anyway, I think that
You have a snake story you've told me before.
the snake story. Yes, I have a story that we were in the same village where I got this wasp nest, and this missionary fella who had been to Brazil many times, he said that this fella had something he wanted to show me. And so I said, okay. So he said, you can go with him, but we were told never to go anywhere without being able to have somebody who spoke Portuguese, which I do not. And but anyway, he said, no, you can go with them. I'll tell him you're going with them. So we walked way to the edge of the village, where there's about 30 houses, and he lets me go into his hut where there's a big well, it's dark in there, but there was this great big gunny sack like thing on the floor, and I thought, oh no, I don't even want to know what this is in here. But he showed me, opened it up, and he says, look at this. In there was a huge anaconda snake, not this big, but it was close. And so I looked down in there because it was dark in this hut, and I looked down in there and something jumped. And I was out of that hut in a hurry, and it was a frog that they put in there for the snake to eat. Well, when I got back to where the team was, I said to this fella who told me I could go without being able to speak Portuguese, I said, I think I even spoke a little Portuguese there. That frog, that toad, scared me to death. Oh my gosh. But when we go, we teach Bible school, and of course our reason for going is to tell them about Jesus. And we take dentists and doctors and optometrists, and many of them never, ever seen a dentist or a doctor in their lives. And so they are very pleased, and this is how we get a foothold into the villages, because they will let us come in. And then, of course, they know that we're coming as missionaries. And they are very receptive in almost every place we have gone. In Brazil, there's only been one or two places, and then they changed their mind after they found out that we had medical help, and they let us come into their villages. And they were the ones that were almost more appreciative than anyone after they let us come and visit with them and to be there. But they also, it's hard for them to understand that you don't add Jesus to all the other things that they have to worship and to pray to and so forth. They will continue to do that, I guess, but at the same time, it's hard for them to change.
Right.
And I can understand that. But after we leave there, a missionary or a pastor or someone from other places will go and lead them further. And now we've gotten some of the printed Bibles or the films and so forth that can be run with battery power. and it's amazing now what these people in these extreme jungle places have. They even some of them have television.
Wow.
And it's just kind of interesting, but they still are very, very primitive.
Right.
And they eat with food they find in the jungle, and that's about it. And fish, and they share from one village to the next. And during this COVID thing, it was very difficult because the government would not let them to share because they didn't want it tracked from one village to the next. And so the people were hungry, very hungry. And so for the 1 year that our team could not go there, we collected money and sent it there, and it was given to our team down in Brazil, our Amazon outreach group there, and they would buy food, and they would get some medical help to them, but by coming to a place where they could pick up food and so forth. But we sent the money for 1 whole year. We did not send a team. But this year now there's 34 teams.
Wow.
That are going to be going on that trip, on those trips in these 2 boats on the Amazon River. But it's an amazing mission, and I love doing it. I haven't gone now for 4 years almost, and it's been very hard, but I still feel like I'm a big part of it because we keep in touch with many people, and it changes our team's lives as well as the people who are living in Brazil.
Right.
And it's amazing how anyone can survive in these jungle places.
Right.
Because there's just nothing there. And yet they do share between villages. As I was going to say, is that was hard because if they butchered a cow, they would share it because there's no refrigeration or anything, so they had to eat it up in some semblance of time. And so that was difficult but they are happy people, and the children are just like kids everywhere. They love to play with the parachute we bring and bubbles and do all this, and they love the Bible stories as much as our kids do here. And it's just an amazing thing. And we dress up in Bible costumes, sort of, if you could call it that, and do the Bible story for them. And it's like we're putting on a big show. And it's kind of humorous because here that wouldn't probably go over, and the people who go on these teams, some have never realized that it is as primitive as it is. And when we start to plan for the Bible school things that we're going to do, I say to them, now don't expect we're having a nice little room with table and chairs to sit in. We're on a big tarp out under a tree in most cases, and there's not anything that really, really resembles our Bible schools here.
Wow.
But it's anyone who wants to go and do this kind of work, I think should get on this kind of a mission trip and go, because it's amazing. On the boat, the team that is running this whole thing there are amazing, and the translators are from there, and sweet Christians, and it's just amazing. But I would go again tomorrow. I could be packed in a minute if I could do it. But but anyway, it is something that I think everybody should do at least once, and you'd probably go back. These piranhas over here, I have never seen a piranha this big. Someone gave me this one, but these are the size that usually they are, and those are the ones that go in schools. And I'm sure there's those big ones out there too, but I have just never seen anything. And these are little things that are made out of that same clay, and you can blow on the things. And but again, these are things that are sold in a village or a town close to a big city, because these things are, nobody comes to buy them. Nobody would come to buy these things in their villages.
Right.
Nobody goes there. So when they see our boat coming, they are very excited, and it's just a fun thing for them to have somebody from another country stop and visit them. This was something that I did not know, that they would do sort of these kind of things, but in a village close to a bigger city. This is a fish scale.
Wow.
And they use fish scales for lots of things, of eating for one thing, and they cut their hair, they sharpen the edge, and they're used for fingernail files and so forth. But that's a fish scale, and these little smaller things on here are dried snake skin. They've soaked it in water, and then this gal who made this cut it. And these little straight pieces here are porcupine quills.
Huh.
They cut the points off so they aren't sharp anymore. And then these little beady-like things, that's that acai berry, and they dry and they're like plastic rocks. But this lady that made this said that it took her like more than 5 weeks to make this curtain.
Wow.
Which I think is interesting because of what it's made from. And again,
Right.
it's made from just stuff that would not ever have been used. It's just, throwaway things. I went on a trip one time with 15 dentists, and we had to wear these, and this was way down in the, way down off of the Paraguay River, and and it was so hot. And these things are just like plastic, it's just, they aren't plastic, but they're, and so we wore these, but while the dentists were being taken care of, the kids and adults, I did Bible school, but they wanted me to wear one of these anyway, and but before we even got there to do this dental work, oh my, I fell and broke a tooth. And I laughed about that ever since, because then all those 15 dentists were all fighting to get to see who was going to put my tooth, artificial tooth back in there, because I had fallen, and they all wanted to be the one before we even got to the mission field. I'm going with other teams, and went on a team one time with a fellow who he and his family were missionaries from Kentucky, and they had a boat, but it was not right in the same place as where Amazon Outreach is, but it was close, and they're the ones that I went with for many years before Amazon Outreach was formed. But Amazon Outreach is here in Dallas, and it's just amazing. But that team, the reason that we started Amazon Outreach was I wasn't on this trip, but the man, his name was Richard Walker, and he was on a team of missionary nurses, and there were 15 nurses on this trip, and they went to some real remote places that no one had ever been before, and he had a heart attack on this trip, and when these with 15 nurses, this should have been a help, but they hurried him back to the main city where he could get help, and so they told him he would never again do this work. And he and his family were very sad about this, because this was what they did. And as it turned out, make a long story short, he came home to Kentucky finally and got help that he needed. And now his grandson is on the river with a boat doing what his great grandpa did for years and years, and but he was an amazing leader and help in those first years that we went before Amazon Outreach. But like I say, the last 4 years, it's been Amazon Outreach that I have gone with mostly, other than my Africa trips. But there's nothing like going to a village where people have never heard the name Jesus, except maybe in a bad way. And to tell them the stories that we tell them about Jesus and what he did when he was here and the love that he has for them, it's amazing. And sometimes they have heard and they do know some things that they have heard. And now it's getting to be more and more that they find out because of the communications, the being what they are. And many of the people in these far away villages, they have been to a city. But when we first started going on these trips 25 years ago, they never have been to a city. Most of them and had never seen a city person. And so when we come, the kids will feel of our skin, and it's so funny because they like to, and they talk to you in Portuguese, of course. But now many of the schools will they teach English, and so they have asked us to talk to them in English because they want to know the right pronunciation of words and so forth. And so that's my excuse for not learning how to speak Portuguese. Oh, but it's a difficult language, it seems like, to learn. But they think English is hard too. So, but the translators that we have on these trips, and the cooks fix wonderful meals. We've kind of Americanized them over the years, but they say that this is their mission too, and it's an amazing work that Amazon Outreach does, and I just every day thank God for my being able to have gone and done all this many times. Interesting life. It's like I had two lives or something, where it was when I was married and now when I'm not. It's like two different worlds that I have lived in.
Wow.
And the fact that, anyone can go and do this. And you pay your own way. And, of course, you can get sponsors, and this is good. And I know that. I would have probably been able to go one time without sponsors, but it's just anyway. Anybody can look it up and see what we do, and all of the Bible school material and so forth is written, printed online, and so this is a fun thing that I have been able to help with and do, and so it's amazing what the people there, how their lives have changed, and we go back to some of the same villages sometimes, just to check on them and to see what's happening if we happen to be going by. And every one of those villages that have accepted the Christian way of life, they have an amazing testimony to give, because it's very difficult. And people who have accepted Christ in some of the villages have had their huts just torn down, and they've had to leave and so forth. But in other cases, they are very welcoming, and they certainly are glad when we come with the medical help and the water wells and so forth. And so this is an interesting mission.
Right.
And like I say, anybody can go. We've had moms and dads bring their, I would say 10-year-olds would be as young as really could do that trip easily if their mom or dad were there. But I've taken several young girls and been their mom if she couldn't go, and it's just amazing. Some of them are afraid of bugs. Well, that's not good. This is Brazil, and we're in the jungle or the rainforest or whatever. But and storms on the shore on the river. It's interesting too, but we've never had anyone injured like that. And during the time when all this COVID thing was just ending, none of the teams ever got COVID, and hopefully never took it into the villages either. But it's just an amazing thing, and I hope that other people will look up Amazon Outreach and read about it, even though you don't go to pray for them, because this is a long story to tell about how God has changed so many of those villages. Right. And there's a church over there. It's a Presbyterian church. And but we don't go under any names at all except Jesus. So this is they just happen to be there, and several of them I have known since they were teenagers, and that they were translators for us, and now they are working for Amazon Outreach in Brazil, and it's just an amazing thing to know some of these families. I've known some, and I've met with one family in January, and this couple hadn't even been married yet when I first met them, and now they have a son in college.
Wow.
but he his dad had come as a missionary there many years before, and they grew up in this town, or this, well, it became a town. It was a village then, and but they were persecuted very severely, his family, and his dad had been left in the jungle to die because they beat him up and so forth. And so these places are still not beyond fearfulness in one way, but it seems like when we go there, they know we're coming, and we always have, every village has a president, and you always have to give permission. And the last 2 times when I was there were 2 lady that were presidents in the village.
Wow, that's amazing.
Which was amazing, because the women, not so much of but they really change when they accept the Lord as their Savior, and this is what the whole thing is all about.
Right. So do you have any God stories, anything that happened that was just obviously unexplained except for God?
Yes, every trip there's something, and most of the time when we go to a village on the boat, our cooks will fix dinner for the entire village, which consists of maybe 30 families. Like that would be a sort of a normal size. And so they will fix lunch for them, and we serve them lunch. Well, for some reason, it seems like the people come out of the river, I guess, I don't know what, when we're serving lunch that day. And so there's many more people than we can even possibly handle. And to take that much food, it's a lot, because we have freezers on the boat. But, I mean, there's only so much they can cook. And after feeding us a breakfast and all that on the boat, and then fixing this for the lunch. So more than one time, we have had people standing in line to get their food, and we always have some kind of meat in it, in a big stew or spaghetti or something like this. And so they come and stand in line. So if we have never seen them at all before this, they are in line. And so we give them this big bowl of stew or whatever it is that we've brought to them. And about 3/4 of the way through the line, we're saying that we're running out. We do not have any. And we keep dipping this out and dipping this out, and there is no way possible that God has not continued this stew. And some of the crew said it looks better than the first part where they were and we have seen that done many times. And also little treats for the kids. My sister went with it's from Minnesota, and her team I went with them one trip, and we didn't have very much candy, and we ended up being at a bigger village because of a storm that, well, it delayed our trip. And so this was a bigger village that we were going to be teaching Bible school in. Of course, you always have to give them treats and candy or something that they don't even know what that is. And but they soon learn, though. They learn quick, sweet. And so this time, and this has happened 2 different times for sure, my sister and I had counted out the number of kids that we thought we might have, and that's how much candy we had. And so we took that up there, and we said, well, there shouldn't be. It was a smaller, it wasn't really a bigger village, that big of a village, but they had let the kids out from school to come, and they bring kids from different villages to this place. And well, we didn't know that, and so we had planned on about 50, thinking there'd be that many kids that would be coming to Bible school. And well, we didn't count on those that were coming from different places that day. And so we had them all in Bible school, and there were like about 130 kids. And that's just about an impossibility, but it worked. And the stories and everything were well taken, and singing songs and doing all these things that we do in Bible school. Well, we started out handing, and we debated as to whether or not we should even start giving out the candy. And the person that was with me on that trip said, okay, if we don't have enough, we don't have enough. And we said to the translators, what's going to happen if we can't give it to them? No, she said, they're used to going without. They're used to having shared, and it's okay, it's okay. We had more candy right down to the very last child that was there. And there was no way we had more than 50, but there was like 120 or 30 kids in Bible school that day. And so that candy, it was the same as we brought, but it just multiplied.
Right.
And we have had that happen so many times. Another time, there was a lady who had been in a wheelchair since she was a teenager, and she was like 28. And this was on that same trip as the candy was handed out. So we thought, okay, ask for big things, right? And so we prayed for this lady because that's what she asked for. She said, all we can do is pray. And so I don't know if she really, trusted in the Lord or not, but at the same time, she told us that she had been praying for years that she would be able to walk. And we all circled around her and prayed for her. And she said that she just felt God's peace come over her. And whether she ever walked again or not, she was okay with it. And so that was in the morning. And that night when we had our church service there in their village with all the people, she asked one of our pastors that was with us to come to their house or their hut. And she said she had something to show them. And so when they got there, she said to them, help me stand. God said I could do that. And he did. And she said, now, I want to walk from this side of the village to to the center where we were having our meeting, in the center of the village, and let everyone see what God has done.
Wow.
I mean, talk about a testimony.
Right.
If she hadn't walked, and everybody said that, nobody, and she had this awfulest wheelchair you've ever seen. I mean, it was just like, it was put together with several different, like wagon wheels and whatever. It was awful. And that's how that she had been getting around from the time she was 18 until she was 26.
Wow.
And so everybody knew her in the village. She's a sweet lady.
Right.
But that was one. And in Africa, it was another situation where a young man was healed, and because his mother had sold him to a witch doctor. And he had been working with this witch doctor for all these years. And he was probably 19 or 20. And they didn't even know how old he was. But he'd been this way all of his life. And the witch doctor convinced that mom that if she sold him to her, that she would take care of him. And that would be it. And, after praying with him and with the mom there that had sold him to this witch doctor, we got that witch doctor to come and pray with us. She didn't want to, but she did. And when we got finished praying, he was able to sit up in bed, and that next day he walked.
Wow.
And he never walked. He never had walked from a babyhood.
Wow.
And these are things that just, you never forget these things. And there's just, every trip, there is a miracle of some sort. And sometimes it's a miracle of the team members.
Mm-hmm.
I have a special friend who, she was kind of in between jobs. She'd finished college, and she felt like her college days were just not being used for anything that she wants to do. And while she was in Brazil, she said, I can see a huge need for a nurse. So she came home, went to nurses college or whatever it is that they call it. She became a nurse and went back to Brazil at different times with her nursing abilities. And now she lives in Plano, and she just had a new little baby in January, I think, and she has a little 2-year-old girl as well, and she wants to go back when her kids are a little bit older. They're a little bit. She doesn't want to leave the baby that long, and but she has been here many times, and we talk about all of the things that happened and how. She told me, sitting on the plane coming home, is that God said to her, you need to be a nurse. And that's what she did. And she's been working all these years in doing that, nursing stuff. But then she got married to the sweetest guy. And it's just amazing for me to see. But it's fun to talk to them and to keep up with those girls who were, some of them teenagers, and in their early 20s like that, and now that's been a few years. And but one of my best friends, her name is also Nancy, and she and I went to Africa 2 times together, and I never would have said she would do that. And it was an interesting trip for us both, in that we slept in tents out in a kind of an open field, and built a school out of boxcars.
Wow.
I wasn't involved much in the building, but doing Bible school, we got to see it going up and being built out in this very remote village, and it changed both of us and our outlook as friends together, and as just remembering all of the things that we did. every trip there's something or somebody that can tell you miracle stories. It's just amazing.
That's amazing.
It really is an amazing thing to go and see a different country.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought I would ever do that. I mean, it never. Like Karen says, yes, you did. You've always wanted to be a missionary. But I said, my missionary, I thought, always teaching Bible school or doing Sunday school and stuff. And so that was, I thought, was what I was supposed to do. And I was, I guess, at that time.
Right.
But it's amazing how God changes your lives in ways sometimes that you don't really like. And at the same time, then looking back on it, it's like to the point where, okay, this is now a different kind of a life I'm living now. And the people that now go on these trips, they're from everywhere. And it's not a church thing, it's an Amazon outreach thing. And there's a team there right now. They left on Tuesday, and they are all women.
Wow.
And it's a community thing. And there's always a person who goes with them that works for Amazon Outreach. So somebody is always there with them on that score. But yeah, it's interesting with these ladies that are going, and they've done this for several years. And it's a group from Plano. And it started out with just a few going, and then more and more and more, and they had a whole team going. And but it was just an amazing thing because you think about how an outreach like that, people coming from different places, different churches, or no church at all. And we take a lot of college kids, high school kids, and some schools send, during spring break, they send older, probably junior, seniors on trips. But there's probably 30 trips that are going this year already signed up. But they come from everywhere on a team. You don't have to just be from a certain area.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Nancy, for sharing all of this amazing stories, amazing life that you've led. And I really appreciate everything you've told me.
Well, thank you for asking me. And anybody that hears this, you can just send them over. I have many more stories to tell.
Okay. Thank you.